Okay, yeah. So the first thing that we read about was Moshe the beetle, and he was one of the poor people who lived in their town, but people in town respected him because he kind of just stayed out of everybody's way. So even though he was poor, he didn't bother anyone, so nobody bothered him.
For the summary for page 4, all I have is that we meet like kind of the main character's dad, and he's really not emotional. He doesn't display a lot of feelings. And the family has like 4 kids, and he's one of them. But the main character is expected to like go to the house and study. He doesn't have to work, do that kind of stuff.
And then on the last page we talk a lot about Moshe's relationship with Eli. And Eli speaks with Moshe every night, and they pray, and they do a lot of discussion about religion and God and faith. We find out that Eli's pretty religious, and then Moshe actually becomes Eli's religious or faith mentor, so they talk a lot about that.
One thing that I didn't know, a word that I didn't know that I wanted to see if you guys knew, was penury, and it was on page 3 in the first paragraph. It says he was poor and lived in utter penury.
I don't know what that is either. I wrote a question mark.
Let me look it up.
And then there was another one too while you're looking that one up. Do you know how to say that word? I have no idea how to say this italicized word.
That S word at the top of page 3?
Yeah. It must be important because it's italicized and it's in there.
Excuse me, ladies, I hate to interrupt, but I found the meaning of penury, and it means total poverty, extreme poverty.
So he was poor and lived in...
Beyond poor, yeah.
I'm going to write down. I don't know if I need to know it, but I don't know.
That's a good idea.
All right, I'm going to look up this italicized word and see if they can figure out how to say it, because I have no idea how to say SHT in one sound.
Yeah, that's a weird word.
All right. So if it works.
How does it sound?
Shtable.
Shtable.
Like vegetable. Shtable.
Well, is it like a Jewish thing? Is that how they pronounce it? Or, because, I mean, this is about...
He was the jack of all trades in a Hasidic house of prayer, a shtable. So a Hasidic house of prayer must be this word. Shtable.
Okay.
Shtable. Got it. Do we want to maybe
Go on to some characterization.
of Eli?
Yeah. All right, the only thing I found on page 3 says, I mean, even as basic as it is, it says, I was almost 13 and I was deeply observant. I'm just thinking about like other 13-year-olds, would they know that they're observant? But the fact that he points it out about himself, I just thought that was like he's recognizing that about himself.
Yeah, that I actually had that marked too. That he wants to learn. Like he's somebody who, even at a young age, that's what he wants. Like he's motivated to want to learn about his religion. What about? I also had something on page 4. If you look on page 4, he had, like right in the middle where it says, he wanted to drive the idea of studying the Kabbalah from my mind in vain. And I had that this meant that Eli was like, had a lot of perseverance, because even though his dad didn't want him to study, he was like, I'm going to do it anyways. Mm-hmm. And he kept doing it, even though his dad didn't want him to. So that showed a lot of perseverance on his part.
And is he studying like academics? It's more religion, right?
Right.
Okay.
Melissa, do you have anything that you would like to say about that?
Oh, thanks for including me. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think he's extremely faithful. Just because if you look on page 4 too, his faith is so deeply rooted inside of him. It said, Moshe actually asks him, why do you cry when you pray? So I feel like his religion and his faith is so deeply rooted that he's a very emotional, very strong for a 13-year-old kid that can cry when he prays because he's so obsessed with the idea.
You know, thinking about what you just said, I don't get that from his family though. I don't feel like they're deeply religious. So why is he? I'm not saying that they're not, but I don't feel like I could see it in 3, 4, and 5 for him, but he mentions
not.
his family briefly.
And
And
even
like-
the fact that his dad doesn't want him to study anything other than what they should be studying, nothing above and beyond what the norm is.
Yeah, very
Right.
flatlined. I noticed that in the page that I summarized, he chose Moshe as his religious mentor. Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. I was looking at page 5 too, where it says something about he would help me enter into eternity, into that time when question and answer would become one. It's his mentor, which I thought was kind of weird because what I'm getting from earlier in the book on page 3 is that he was kind of like different. He was like an outcast. He's kind of strange, Moshe the Beetle. Because not everybody in the town.
So like, why would he pick him if he's like the stranger, the weird one in town? But I think just to like piggyback off that he, like Eli himself is kind of an outcast. Like, he's the only one in his family, for example, that wants to study this religion. No, he doesn't speak of any other kids his age wanting to speak that or wanting to look more into this religion. So maybe he feels the connection with him because he's kind of an outcast. Moshe's kind of an outcast, so they can unite on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about it that way.
Just being different and what
Mhm.
that looks like.
And
to
that's
be.
their connection, and maybe that's why he chose him as a mentor.
Right.
Plus, going back to his dad didn't really, want him to do this, and
Or support him to do it. So he couldn't go to his dad for support. So here's another male figure that he could go to.
Kind of replacing that family, like the family father figure with somebody
Exactly.
who would support what he was looking at, what he was believing in.
I wonder if we're going to see Moshe any more. Like, are they going to develop more of a relationship as the book goes on, or, is his dad going to come between them and maybe not want him to?
I don't know, but that last quote, and you just read it, I became convinced that Moshe the Beetle would help me enter eternity into the time when question and answer would become one. Just seems like Moshe is helping him to be, to develop these strongest beliefs. Like, Moshe has to come up again. Because there has to be more to this belief,
More to the story.
This story. I feel like that quote is powerful.
And I feel like they wouldn't make such a big deal out of Moshe if he wasn't going to play an important part in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Great job.